The ancient halls of Harmony Point buzzed with nervous energy as delegates from across the galaxy gathered for the most important council session in decades. Thren pulled his ceremonial robes tighter around his weathered frame as he approached the speaking podium. The Kelvari Elder had lived through 7 centuries of galactic politics, but today would be different. Today he would speak truth that most would refuse to hear. "Honored representatives," Thren began, his voice carrying the weight of ages, "I come before you not as a diplomat, but as a survivor. My people have watched civilizations rise and fall across the stars. We have seen species that seemed invincible crumble to dust. We have witnessed the birth of empires that now rule vast sectors of space. But never have we encountered anything like the humans." A ripple of amusement passed through the assembled delegates. The Bruthan ambassador, a massive creature covered in chitinous armor, let out a bark of laughter. "The humans? Those primitive apes from the 3rd planet of System Sol? They barely learned to leave their gravity well 50 years ago. What threat could they possibly pose?" Thren's ancient eyes fixed on the Bruthan with cold intensity. "That is precisely the mistake you must not make, Grotak. We made similar assumptions when we first encountered them. Our scouts reported a species confined to a single world, fighting among themselves with crude weapons. Their technology was centuries behind ours. Their ships were slow and clumsy. By every measure we used to judge civilizations, they were insignificant." The Nexari representative, her crystalline form shimmering with disdain, spoke next. "Then, why do you waste our time with warnings about insects? If they are so primitive, they will remain in their corner of space and trouble no one." "Because," Thren said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, "you have not seen what they become when threatened. You have not witnessed the change that comes over them when they decide you are their enemy. The humans possess something that we have never encountered in any other species across the galaxy." "And what is that?" asked the Vorthan delegate, his tentacles writhing with curiosity. "They hunt," Thren replied simply. "Not for food, not for territory, not for resources. They hunt because they have been wronged. They hunt because they remember. They hunt because they cannot let go." The hall fell silent. Even the ever-present hum of the station's life support system seemed to fade as Thren continued his tale. 57 years ago, my people discovered their system. We were explorers then, seeking new worlds to colonize. Earth appeared perfect for our needs. The humans had not yet developed interstellar travel. They were divided into hundreds of small nations, constantly warring among themselves. We thought them easy to displace. Thren paused, his clawed hands gripping the podium. "We were wrong. The moment our first colony ship entered their atmosphere, something changed. The humans stopped fighting each other and turned their attention to us. Not just their military, but their entire species. Children drew pictures of our ships burning. Their artists created songs about driving us from their skies. Their scientists worked day and night to understand our technology. But surely your superior weapons and numbers gave you the advantage," pressed the Kellan representative. "For a time, yes. We established 3 colonies on their world. We defeated their armies in conventional battle. We controlled their skies. By every military calculation, we had won. But the humans did not stop fighting. They simply changed how they fought." The old Calvari's voice grew distant, as if he were seeing events from long ago. "They struck at night using weapons made from scavenged materials. They attacked our supply lines, our isolated outposts, our patrol vessels. When we adapted to their tactics, they changed again. When we fortified our positions, they found new ways to reach us. They never stopped learning, never stopped adapting, never stopped coming. Surely you could have simply eliminated them entirely," suggested the Bruthan ambassador. "We tried," Thren admitted. "We launched orbital bombardments against their cities. We poisoned their water supplies. We unleashed biological weapons that should have ended their species. Each time, the survivors came back stronger, more determined, more resourceful. They learned to live in the ruins we created. They turned our own weapons against us. They made The very act of existing on their world, a constant battle for survival. The hall was completely silent now. Even the most warlike species present seemed unsettled by the tale. But what truly frightened us was not their resilience, Thren continued. It was their memory, generations past. New leaders rose among them, their technology advanced. They reached the stars and made contact with other species. They traded, negotiated, and showed remarkable restraint in their dealings with the galactic community. We thought they had forgotten us. They had not forgotten, Thren said, his voice heavy with old fear. 70 years after our first contact, a human fleet appeared at the edge of our home system. Not a raiding party or a scouting force, but a full battle fleet. They had spent 7 decades learning our weaknesses, mapping our territories, studying our culture. They knew where we lived, how we fought, what we valued most. The Bruthan ambassador leaned forward. And what did they do? They gave us one chance to leave their world voluntarily. When we refused, they began the most systematic campaign of destruction we had ever experienced. They did not simply defeat our fleets, they hunted down every ship, every station, every outpost we had built. They tracked our people across the galaxy. They followed our refugees to distant worlds. They never stopped coming. Thren's voice became barely audible. It took them 43 years to find every last Kelvari who had participated in invasion of their world. 43 years of patient, methodical hunting. They killed no innocents, harmed no civilians, but every being who had set foot on Earth died by human hands. They kept perfect records, tracked bloodlines, followed family trees. They never forgot. A name, never lost a trail, never gave up the hunt. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The assembled delegates began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. The humans who accomplished this were not the same generation that we had invaded, Thren continued. They were the children and grandchildren of those we had wronged. They had been taught from birth to remember our names, to study our methods, to prepare for the day when justice would be served. They passed this knowledge down like a sacred trust. How many of you survived? Asked the Vorthan quietly. Of the original invasion force of 50,000? None of their descendants who inherited the guilt? None. The humans tracked us across time itself, pursuing a debt that spanned generations. They became something beyond normal predators. They became the memory of the galaxy made manifest. The hall erupted in nervous chatter, but Thren raised his hand for silence. I share this not to frighten you, but to warn you. The humans are not like us. They do not forget. They do not forgive. They do not move on. If you harm them, if you threaten them, if you take what they hold dear, they will hunt you. Not just, you, but your children, your civilization, your entire species. They will pursue you across the stars and through the generations until the debt is paid in full. That is why I stand before you today, Thren concluded. The humans have joined our galactic community. They trade with us, negotiate with us, share knowledge with us. They are reasonable beings capable of great friendship and cooperation. But remember this above all else, they are also the galaxy's most patient predators. Cross them at your peril, for they will hunt you forever. The red dawn of New Terra painted the sky in shades of blood as Roy finished his morning inspection of the colony's defenses. The human settlement had grown beyond all expectations in just 15 years, transforming from a handful of prefabricated shelters into a thriving city of 2 million souls. Children played in the streets while their parents worked in the fusion plants and hydroponic farms that made life possible on this distant world. Roy never imagined he would die here when he first accepted the position of security chief. The job seemed simple enough. Keep the peace among the colonists and watch for the occasional pirate raid. The galaxy had been peaceful for decades, and humanity had earned its place among the stars through trade and diplomacy rather than conquest. The warnings from the old Kelvari about human nature seemed like ancient history. The first sign of trouble came from the orbital defense platform. Chief, we're picking up multiple contacts at the edge of the system, reported Lieutenant Davis, her voice tight with concern. Configuration matches Bruthan Empire vessels. Looks like a full battle fleet. Roy felt his blood turn to ice. The Bruthan Empire had been making aggressive moves for months, but intelligence suggested they were focused on expanding into uncontested space. New Terra lay deep within established human territory, far from any border disputes or strategic resources that might interest a major power. How long until they reach us? Roy asked, already knowing the answer would not be good. At current speed, approximately 4 hours. Chief, there are at least 30 capital ships out there. Our defense grid won't hold them for more than a few minutes. Roy closed his eyes and tried to think. The nearest human fleet was weeks away, and even if they had received the distress signal immediately, help would not arrive in time. The colony's population centers were scattered across 3 continents, making evacuation impossible. They were alone, outnumbered, and outgunned. Send a message to Fleet Command, Roy ordered. Full tactical analysis of the approaching force. Make sure they understand this is unprovoked aggression against a civilian target. As the hours passed, Roy watched the Bruthan fleet advance with the terrible precision of a machine built for destruction. Their ships were massive, dark vessels bristling with weapons that could crack planets. The humans had always known they were not the strongest species in the galaxy, but they had believed their peaceful intentions would protect them from such overwhelming force. The attack began with a barrage of particle beams that turned the orbital defense stations into expanding clouds of superheated gas. The colonists below watched in horror as their protective shield simply ceased to exist, leaving them naked before the approaching storm. Roy had hoped the Bruthans would at least demand surrender, giving the civilians time to evacuate or negotiate. Instead, the alien fleet opened fire on the planet itself. The first strikes targeted the fusion plants and communication arrays, crippling the colony's ability to coordinate a defense or call for help. The second wave focused on population centers, raining death from the sky with surgical precision. Roy realized with growing horror that this was not a conquest but an extermination. The Bruthans had come to New Terra to prove a point, and that point required the complete destruction of everyone and everything humans had built here. All units, fall back to the emergency bunkers, Roy broadcast on the emergency frequency. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. All civilian personnel to the underground shelters immediately. The ground shook as Bruthan drop ships began landing in the city center. The aliens that emerged were massive creatures encased in powered armor, carrying weapons that could vaporize a human with a single shot. They moved through the streets with methodical efficiency, checking every building, every shelter, every hiding place for survivors. Roy and his small security force tried to mount a defense, but their weapons were designed for crowd control and the occasional criminal, not warfare against a technologically superior enemy. They managed to destroy 3 Bruthan soldiers before being overwhelmed by sheer numbers and firepower. As Roy lay bleeding in the ruins of his command post, he activated the emergency beacon that would transmit his final message to Earth. The signal was weak, barely powerful enough to reach the nearest relay station, but it would have to be enough. This is Security Chief Roy of New Terra Colony, he said, his voice steady despite the pain. At approximately 0800 local time, Bruthan, Empire forces began an unprovoked assault on our world. They are not seeking surrender or negotiation. They are systematically exterminating the civilian population. 2 million innocent people are dying here today for no reason other than to demonstrate Bruthan power. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the rubble. Roy could hear the mechanical whine of Bruthan weapons charging as they prepared to finish him. In the distance, explosions continued to rock the city as the aliens completed their grim work. I'm uploading our complete tactical analysis of the attack, Roy continued, his fingers working frantically at his console. Ship configurations, weapon signatures, unit organization, everything we've learned about their capabilities. The coordinates of every Bruthan world in our database are included in this transmission. The footsteps stopped outside his hiding place. Roy could see the shadow of a Bruthan soldier through the gaps in the debris. The alien was taking its time, savoring the moment before the kill. To whoever receives this message, Roy said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Remember New Terra, remember what they did to us. Remember that we died not as soldiers but as farmers, teachers, engineers, and children. Remember that we committed no crime except existing in a place they wanted to destroy. The Bruthan soldier stepped into view, its weapon trained on Roy's chest. The alien's face was hidden behind a helmet, but Roy could feel its satisfaction at finding another human to kill. The creature spoke in its own language, probably demanding surrender or pleading for mercy. Roy had no idea what it was saying, and he did not care. Remember New Terra? Roy repeated, looking directly into the alien's weapon. And remember this, we are not just colonists. We are not just civilians, we are humans, and humans do not forget. The transmission ended as the weapon fired, but by then the signal had already reached the relay station and begun its journey to Earth. Within hours, every human settlement in the galaxy would know what had happened to New Terra. They would know that the Bruthan Empire had chosen to test humanity's resolve by murdering 2 million innocents. The Bruthan fleet commander broadcast his success to the galaxy as planned. The message was simple. This was what happened to species that dared to challenge Bruthan superiority. The humans had grown too comfortable, too confident in their place among the stars. Now they would learn to fear their betters and accept their proper place in the galactic order. But something strange happened after the attack. Instead of the expected flood of human diplomatic protests and surrender offers, there was only silence. Human ships stopped responding to hails. Human traders ceased their regular routes. Human diplomats withdrew from galactic councils without explanation. The silence spread like a plague across human space. Worlds that had been bustling with activity went dark. Communication networks that had carried the chatter of a thriving civilization fell silent. It was as if humanity had simply vanished from the galaxy overnight. The Bruthan High Command was puzzled but not concerned. They had expected the humans to submit quickly once faced with superior force. Perhaps they were merely taking time to compose their surrender or dealing with internal panic following the loss of New Terra. Either way, the silence would not last long. They were wrong. The silence was not surrender, it was preparation. Across human space, a transformation was taking place. The peaceful traders and colonists who had earned their place among the stars were remembering something their ancestors had known well. They were remembering how to hunt. The message from New Terra had reached Earth, and with it came a simple truth that would reshape the galaxy. The Bruthan Empire had made a mistake that would cost them everything. They had given humanity a reason to remember what they were capable of when pushed beyond all limits. The hunt was about to begin. The Bruthan patrol ship Dominator drifted silently through the void, its crew confident in their recent victory. 6 months had passed since the destruction of New Terra, and the galaxy had settled into a new order with the Bruthan Empire firmly established as the dominant force. The humans had finally learned their place, retreating to their core worlds and abandoning their expansion into contested space. Commander Vrak reviewed the patrol reports with satisfaction. Human shipping had completely ceased in this sector, leaving vast regions of space open for Bruthan exploitation. The lesson of New Terra had been learned well, and soon the Empire would begin claiming the abandoned human colonies as their own. "Commander," reported the sensor operator, "we're detecting a debris field approximately 2 light minutes ahead. Configuration suggests it might be the remains of a human transport vessel." Vrak's mandibles clicked with amusement. "Probably some coward trying to flee to neutral space. Take us in for a closer look. There might be salvageable technology aboard." The Dominator approached the debris field slowly, its sensors probing the scattered wreckage for anything of value. The remains appeared to be from the civilian cargo hauler, the kind humans used for interplanetary trade. There was no sign of weapons or military equipment, just the broken pieces of another human dream crushed by Bruthan superiority. "Sir, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from the larger debris pieces," the sensor operator reported. "The patterns don't match standard human technology." "Investigate," Vrak ordered, "but maintain safe distance. Even humans might be capable of some primitive booby trap." The Dominator moved closer, its tractor beam reaching out to capture a section of hull plating for analysis. The moment the beam made contact, the debris field exploded into motion. What had appeared to be floating wreckage suddenly revealed itself as a carefully constructed ambush. Human ships emerged from their hiding places among the debris. Their SULs blackened and modified to blend with the scattered remains. They moved with deadly precision, surrounding the Bruthan vessel before its crew could react. These were not the clumsy, slow ships the Empire had faced before. These vessels moved like predators, sleek and silent and hungry. All stations, battle. Alert! Vrock shouted, but it was already too late. The human ships opened fire with weapons that should not have existed. Particle beams that burned through Bruthan armor like paper. Missiles that tracked their targets through dimensions the Empire had not even discovered. Energy shields that turned their most powerful weapons into harmless light. The bridge of the Dominator, filled with smoke and screaming as the human assault, tore through its defenses. Vrock watched in horror as his crew, trained warriors who had conquered a dozen worlds, died at their stations. The enemy was not just using superior technology, they were using Bruthan technology, improved and refined. Beyond recognition, how is this possible? Vrock gasped as his ship's hull began to buckle under the relentless attack. They are primitives, they barely understand space travel. His answer came in the form of a transmission from the lead human vessel. The face that appeared on his screen was calm, almost serene, but the eyes held a coldness that made Vrock's blood freeze. Commander Vrock of the Bruthan vessel Dominator, the human said. I am Admiral Beth of the Human Fleet Retribution. You are guilty of participating in the massacre of New Terra Colony. The sentence is death. Wait, Vrock pleaded. I was not at New Terra. I had no part in that operation. I'm just a patrol commander following orders. You wear the uniform of the Bruthan Empire, Admiral Beth replied. You serve the government that ordered the murder of 2 million civilians. You benefit from the fear created by that atrocity. That makes you complicit. The transmission ended and the human ships resumed their attack. But they were not simply trying to destroy the Dominator. They were taking it apart piece by piece, studying its construction, learning its weaknesses. Vrock realized with growing horror that his ship was not just being destroyed, it was being dissected. The final blow came from a weapon that Vrock had never seen before, a device that somehow inverted the Dominator's own shields and turned them into a crushing force. The mighty Bruthan warship imploded like a collapsing star, taking its crew with it into oblivion. Admiral Beth watched the destruction with no satisfaction, only grim purpose. The Dominator was the 17th Bruthan vessel her fleet had eliminated. This month, an intelligence suggested there were thousands more scattered across the galaxy. Each battle taught them something new about their enemy's capabilities, and each victory brought them closer to their ultimate goal. Status report, she requested from her tactical officer. All ships undamaged, Admiral. We've recovered significant amounts of Bruthan technology and 3 survivors for interrogation. Our scientists estimate they can improve our shield generators by another 15% based on what we've learned today. Beth nodded. The transformation of humanity had been swift and total. The moment news of New Terra reached Earth, every human world had turned its entire industrial capacity toward a single goal, the complete destruction of the Bruthan Empire. Civilian factories were converted to weapons production. Research facilities abandoned peaceful projects to focus on military applications. Even children were taught to contribute to the war effort, their young minds finding new ways to apply captured alien technology, but the most remarkable change was in the humans themselves. The peaceful traders and colonists who had earned their place among the stars were gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. They had remembered what their ancestors knew, what had made them the apex predators of their homeworld. They had remembered how to hunt. Set course for the Kepler system, Beth ordered. Intelligence reports another Bruthan patrol in that sector. We have work to do. The human fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only empty void and the expanding cloud of debris that had once been the Dominator. Within hours, the wreckage would be discovered by other Bruthan vessels, and the news would spread throughout the Empire. Another patrol had vanished without a trace. Another crew had been eliminated with surgical precision, but the disappearances were only the beginning. Across the galaxy, human fleets were emerging from the darkness to strike at Bruthan targets. They did not seek territory or resources. They did not demand surrender or negotiation. They simply killed methodically and efficiently, working their way through a list of names that seemed to grow longer with each passing day, the Bruthan High. Command tried to dismiss the attacks as random pirate raids, but the pattern was too clear to ignore. The humans were not striking randomly. They were hunting specific targets, following a plan that seemed to account for every Bruthan vessel, every base, every individual who had participated in the Empire's expansion. General Thax, Supreme Commander of the Bruthan military, studied the reports with growing unease. The humans were not fighting like any species he had encountered before. They showed no interest in conventional victory or territorial gain. They seemed to be pursuing some kind of vendetta that transcended normal warfare. "How many ships have we lost to these attacks?" he asked his aide. 47 confirmed destroyed, sir. Another 33 missing and presumed captured. But the disturbing part is not the numbers, it's the precision. The humans seem to know exactly where our ships will be and when. They're not just winning battles, they're predicting our movements. Thax's compound eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "They're not reacting to our strategies, sir. They're anticipating them. Every tactical decision we make, every patrol route we establish, every defensive position we take, they've already planned for it. It's as if they understand us better than we understand ourselves." The implications were staggering. If the humans could predict Bruthan military doctrine with such accuracy, no force in the Empire would be safe. Every ship, every base, every installation would be vulnerable to attack at the moment of maximum weakness. "Sir," the aide continued, "there's something else. The survivors from the destroyed ships report that the humans are not just killing our people, they're studying them, taking detailed scans, recording conversations, analyzing their memories. It's as if they're building a comprehensive database of everyone who serves the Empire." Thax felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature of his command center. The humans were not just hunting Bruthan military forces. They were cataloging them, learning their names, their faces, their histories. They were preparing for something far more extensive than simple revenge. "Double all patrol schedules," he ordered. "I want every ship to travel in groups of at least 3 vessels. No more solo missions until we understand what we're dealing with." But even as he gave the orders, Thax knew they would not be enough. The humans had spent 6 months in silence, and now they were emerging from the darkness with capabilities that defied explanation. They had turned the galaxy's most advanced military technology against its creators, and they were doing it with the patient precision of born hunters. The hunt had begun, and the Bruthan Empire was learning what it meant to be prey. The emergency session of the Bruthan High Council convened in the deepest bunker beneath the Imperial Palace, 50 kilometers below the surface of the homeworld. General Thax stood before the assembled leadership, his usually proud bearing diminished by months of defeats and the weight of impossible decisions. "The situation is critical," he began, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "Human forces have destroyed or captured 60% of our outer fleet. They have eliminated our border patrols, our supply lines, and our forward operating bases. Every attempt to engage them in conventional battle has resulted in complete annihilation of our forces. Emperor Kazeth, ancient ruler of the Bruthan Empire, shifted in his ceremonial throne. You speak of these humans as if they were gods of war, General. They are a young species with primitive technology. How can they possibly threaten an empire that has ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years? Because they are not fighting like any species we have encountered before, Your Majesty. They do not seek territory or resources. They do not respond to diplomatic overtures. They have one goal, the complete elimination of everyone who serves the Empire. Every soldier, every officer, every government official, every citizen who supports our cause. The Emperor's mandibles clicked with disbelief. Surely you exaggerate. No species could sustain such a campaign of extermination. The logistics alone would be impossible. Thax activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber. This is the human fleet detected at the edge of the Corvin system yesterday. Our estimates suggest they have at least 2,000 capital ships, 10,000 support vessels, and enough manufacturing capacity to replace their losses faster than we can inflict them. They have built this armada in less than 2 years, using technology reverse-engineered from our own ships. The assembled council members stared at the display in stunned silence. The human fleet was larger than anything the Empire had faced in centuries of warfare. But more terrifying than its size was its purpose. This was not a force built for conquest or expansion. It was a force built for extermination. How is such rapid construction possible? Demanded Admiral Vorth, commander of the home fleet. They have converted their entire civilization to a war footing, Thax replied. Every factory, every research facility, every resource in human space is dedicated to building weapons and ships. They have abandoned all other pursuits. They exist only to destroy us. Then we must strike at their homeworld, suggested General Crix. Cut off the head of the snake before it can bite us. We tried that, Thax said grimly. 3 months ago, we launched a massive assault on Earth itself. 500 of our finest ships, commanded by our most experienced officers. The attack was perfectly planned and executed. We should have been able to crack their planet like an egg. What happened? The Emperor asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer would not be good. They were waiting for us. Not just waiting, but prepared. They had built defensive installations that we never detected, deployed weapons that we never imagined existed, and coordinated their response with an efficiency that suggests they had been planning for our attack since the day we destroyed New Terra. Thax changed the display to show the wreckage of the Bruthan attack fleet. We lost. Every ship, every crew member, every marine. The humans did not just defeat us, they captured our technology, our personnel, our battle plans. They learned everything we know about warfare and turned it against us. But surely they suffered losses as well, protested Admiral Vorth. No defense is perfect. They lost 18 ships out of their entire defensive fleet, Thax replied. 18 ships to eliminate 500 of ours. The mathematics of this war are not in our favor. The Emperor rose from his throne, his ancient frame trembling with rage. I will not accept defeat from a species that barely knows how to leave its own system. We are the Bruthan Empire. We are the masters of this galaxy. We will mobilize every ship, every weapon, every warrior we possess and crush these upstarts once and for all. Your Majesty, Thax said carefully, that is exactly what they want us to do. The humans are not trying to conquer our territory or destroy our civilization. They are trying to provoke us into bringing our entire fleet into the open where they can eliminate it in one decisive battle. Then what do you suggest? The Emperor demanded. We must sue for peace immediately. We must offer reparations for New Terra and withdraw from human space. We must hope that their thirst for revenge can be satisfied through negotiation rather than extermination. The Emperor's laughter was bitter and harsh. Peace? With primitives who dare to threaten the Empire? Never. I would rather see our civilization burn than bow to such creatures. That may be exactly what happens, Thax warned. The humans are not like us. They do not fight for glory or conquest. They fight because they remember. They remember New Terra, and they will not stop until every being who served the Empire has paid the price for that atrocity. Before the Emperor could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the bunker. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in red, and the voice of the base commander echoed through the speakers. All personnel to battle stations. Human forces have been detected entering the home system. Repeat, human forces are approaching the capital world. The assembled council members stared at each other in shock. The Imperial homeworld was supposed to be impregnable, protected by the finest defensive systems in the galaxy, and surrounded by the most powerful fleet ever assembled. How could the humans have penetrated so deeply into Empire territory without detection? Impossible, the Emperor breathed. The outer defenses would have detected them days ago. Unless they are no longer there, Thax said grimly. General, activate the communication array. I want to know the status of every installation between here and the border. The reports came in quickly, each one more devastating than the last. The outer defensive lines had been systematically destroyed over the past week. The garrison fleets had been eliminated without sending a single distress signal. The humans had carved a path of destruction through the heart of the Empire, leaving behind only empty space and the expanding debris fields of what had once been mighty fortresses. They did not just approach our homeworld, Thax realized. They conquered half our territory to reach it. They eliminated everything between here and the border without us even knowing they were there. Through the reinforced windows of the bunker, they could see the first signs of the human attack. Streaks of light filled the night sky as orbital defense platforms died in brilliant explosions. The capital city's lights flickered and went out as power stations were destroyed with surgical precision. How many ships are out there? The Emperor asked. Unknown, Thax replied. Our sensors are being jammed, but initial estimates suggest at least 1,000 capital ships. They have brought enough firepower to sterilize the entire planet. Then we fight them in the streets, the Emperor declared. We make them pay for every meter of ground they take. Your Majesty, Thax said. Quietly, I do not believe they intend to invade. They are not here to conquer our world. They are here to eliminate everyone who lives on it. The truth of his words became clear as the human bombardment intensified. This was not the careful, targeted strikes of a conquering army. This was the systematic destruction of a civilization. Military bases, government buildings, communication centers, industrial facilities, even civilian population centers were being reduced to rubble with methodical efficiency. They are not trying to capture our homeworld, Thax continued. They are trying to erase it, to remove every trace of our existence from the galaxy. The Emperor's expression changed from rage to something approaching fear. But that would be genocide. The Galactic Council would never allow such an atrocity. The Galactic Council is not here, Thax replied. And after what we did to New Terra, I doubt they would intervene even if they could. We taught the humans that civilian populations are acceptable targets. Now they are teaching us the same lesson. The floor shook as a particularly massive explosion rocked the bunker. Emergency systems activated, sealing the chamber against radiation and toxic gases. But even 50 kilometers underground, they could feel the planet dying above them. Sir, reported the communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. Put it through, the Emperor ordered. The holographic display activated, showing the face of a human officer. His expression was calm, almost serene, but his eyes held the cold fire of absolute purpose. People of the Bruthan Empire, the human began, I am Commander Dan of the Human Fleet Retribution. You destroyed New Terra and murdered 2 million innocent civilians. You did this not in the heat of battle, but as a calculated demonstration of your power. You wanted the galaxy to fear you. The human's voice remained steady, emotionless. Now, you will learn what fear truly means. We are not here to conquer your world. We are here to eliminate everyone who participated in the massacre of our people. Every soldier, every officer, every official who supported the decision to destroy New Terra will be found and executed. We offer no terms for surrender. We accept no pleas for mercy. We make no distinction between combatants and civilians. Because you made no such distinction at New Terra, you wanted to demonstrate your strength by killing our children. Now we will demonstrate our strength by ending your civilization. The transmission ended, and the chamber fell silent except for the distant rumble of destruction above. The Emperor stared at the blank display, his ancient mind struggling to processed the magnitude of what was happening. "They mean to kill us all," he whispered. "Every last one of us." "Yes," Thax confirmed, "and they have the capability to do it. Our estimates suggest they can maintain this bombardment for months. If necessary, they will reduce our homeworld to ash, then move on to the next Bruthan colony, and the next, until nothing remains of our civilization." The communications officer spoke up again. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the Empire. Human fleets have appeared at 17 major worlds simultaneously. They're not just attacking the capital, they're attacking everywhere at once." The scope of the human operation was staggering. While the Empire's attention had been focused on the border conflicts, the humans had been positioning forces throughout Bruthan space. They had planned this assault with the patience of apex predators, studying their prey for weaknesses and striking at the moment of maximum vulnerability. "How long do we have?" the Emperor asked. "The bunker can withstand direct bombardment for approximately 72 hours, Thax replied. "After that, they will break through our defenses and finish what they started. Then we must evacuate. Gather the core leadership and flee to the outer colonies. We can rebuild the Empire from there." Thax shook his head. "They will follow. Useless, they have already demonstrated that distance means nothing to them. They will hunt us across the galaxy, world by world, system by system, until every Bruthan who served the Empire is dead." "But surely some of our people are innocent," protested Admiral Vorth. "Citizens who had no part in the decision to attack New Terra." "Tell that to the children of New Terra," Thax replied bitterly. "Tell that to the families who died in their homes while our soldiers burned their cities. We made no distinction between innocent and guilty when we destroyed their world. Why should they show us mercy we never offered them?" The Emperor slumped in his throne, the weight of 3 millennia of imperial rule suddenly crushing him. "How did it come to this? How did we go from masters of the galaxy to hunted animals in less than 2 years?" "We underestimated them," Thax said simply. "We saw their peaceful nature and mistook it for weakness. We saw their small territory and mistook it for insignificance. We saw their youth as a species and mistook it for inferiority. We forgot the most basic rule of survival: never corner a predator." Another massive explosion shook the bunker, and several council members cried out in fear. The human bombardment was growing more intense, more focused. They were systematically destroying the planet's defensive grid, preparing for the final assault. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "the humans are transmitting again. This message is directed specifically at this bunker." The display activated once more, showing the same human commander. But this time, his eyes seemed to look directly at each council member, as if he could see through the rock and metal that protected them. "Emperor Kazeth," the human said, "we know you are listening. We know exactly where you are hiding. We have studied your bunker's construction, mapped its weaknesses, and calculated precisely how long it will take to break through your defenses." The Emperor's face went pale. "How do they know so much about our most classified installations?" "We have had 2 years to prepare for this moment," Commander Don continued. 2 years to study your technology, interrogate your personnel, and plan your destruction. We know your military doctrine, your defensive strategies, your evacuation protocols. We know the names of every officer in your command, the location of every base in your territory, the identity of every official in your government." The human's voice remained calm, but the words carried the weight of absolute certainty. "You cannot hide from us. You cannot run from us. You cannot negotiate with us. You chose to make us your enemies when you destroyed New Terra. Now you will learn what it means to be hunted by humans. We offer you one choice," Commander Down continued. "Surrender now and face execution for your crimes, or continue to resist and watch as we extend your suffering for as long as possible. Either way, the outcome is the same. The Bruthan Empire will cease to exist." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. The reality of their situation was becoming impossible to deny. The humans had not simply declared war on the Bruthan Empire. They had declared the extinction of their entire species. "What are your orders, Your Majesty?" Thax asked quietly. The Emperor looked around the chamber at the faces of his advisors, his generals, his closest supporters. These beings had served the Empire faithfully for decades, some for centuries. They had expanded Bruthan territory across thousands of worlds, brought prosperity to billions of citizens, and maintained peace through strength for longer than most species had existed. Now they were all going to die because of a decision he had made in a moment of arrogance. The destruction of New Terra had seemed like such a simple demonstration of power, a way to put the upstart humans in their proper place. Instead, it had awakened something that threatened to devour everything they had built. "Send a message to all remaining Bruthan forces," the Emperor said finally. "Tell them to disperse, to hide, to survive however they can. The Empire is finished, but perhaps some of our people can escape the humans' vengeance." "And us?" "Admiral," Vorth asked. The Emperor straightened in his throne, finding some measure of his old dignity. "We stay. We face the consequences of our actions. If the humans want justice for New Terra, they will have it." The bombardment continued for another 36 hours before the bunker's defenses finally failed. When the human soldiers broke through the final barrier, they found the Bruthan leadership waiting for them in the council chamber. No weapons, no final desperate resistance, just the broken remnants of what had once been the galaxy's most powerful empire. Commander Dan entered the chamber personally to witness the end. He looked at each Bruthan in turn, checking their faces against the database his people had compiled. Every name, every face, every individual who had participated in the massacre of New Terra was accounted for. "Do you have any final words?" he asked the Emperor. "Only this," Kazeth replied. "We thought ourselves the masters of the galaxy. We believed our strength made us invincible. We were wrong. The humans are the true apex predators of this universe. May the galaxy learn from our mistake." The execution was swift and efficient. Within minutes, the leadership of the Bruthan Empire was dead, and the hunters moved on to their next targets. There were still millions of Bruthans scattered across the galaxy, and each one would be found, catalogued, and eliminated with the same methodical precision. The hunt would continue until the debt was paid in full, the final Bruthan stronghold. Hung in the darkness between stars, hidden within a nebula so dense that conventional sensors could not penetrate its swirling gases. For 3 years, the survivors of the Empire had gathered here, believing that the ancient fortress built by their ancestors would protect them from the human hunters who had systematically destroyed their civilization. General Tom studied the massive structure through the viewports of his flagship, the human dreadnought, New Terra's Memory. The Bruthan fortress was impressive, a testament to engineering prowess built over centuries of careful construction. Its shields could withstand the combined firepower of a dozen fleets, and its weapons were capable of sterilizing entire star systems, but the humans had not come here to engage in a traditional siege. They had come to finish what the Bruthans had started when they decided to test humanity's resolve by murdering 2 million innocents. "Final count on the fortress population?" Tom asked his intelligence officer. "Approximately 50,000 Bruthan. Military personnel and civilians, sir. This represents the last organized remnant of their government and armed forces. Our databases indicate that 97.3% of all individuals responsible for the New Terra massacre have been eliminated. The remaining survivors are concentrated in this facility." Tom nodded. The mathematics of vengeance were almost complete. 2 million humans had died at New Terra, and in response, humanity had methodically hunted down and eliminated every Bruthan who had served the Empire. Not just the soldiers who had pulled the triggers, but the officers who had given the orders, the officials who had approved the mission, the citizens who had celebrated the victory. The transformation of humanity was now complete. The peaceful traders and explorers who had first ventured into space were gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. They had become the galaxy's apex predators, shaped by loss and driven by a memory that would never fade. "Status of the assault fleet?" Tom requested. "All ships in position, sir. We have completely surrounded the nebula." No Bruthan vessel can escape without our detection. Ground forces are prepared for final assault. The human fleet that surrounded the fortress was unlike anything that had existed before the war. These ships were built not for exploration or trade, but for a single purpose: the complete elimination of their enemies. They incorporated the best technology from a dozen species, all improved by human ingenuity and driven by human determination. But more than their technology, it was the humans themselves who had changed. The crews of these ships had been born during the war, raised on stories of New Terra, trained from childhood to hunt Bruthan survivors. They knew no other purpose, felt no other calling. They were evolution in action, a species adapting to become perfect predators. "Open a channel to the fortress," Tom ordered. The main screen activated, showing the interior of what appeared to be the Bruthan command center. The alien who appeared was old, his chitinous shell scarred by decades of warfare. Tom recognized him from the intelligence files. General Corax, one of the few Bruthan commanders to survive the fall of their homeworld. "I am General Tom of the human fleet," Tom began. "You are the last remnant of the Bruthan Empire. Your military has been destroyed, your worlds conquered or abandoned, your people scattered to the winds. You have nowhere left to run." Corax's mandibles clicked in what might have been resignation. "What do you want from us, human? We have nothing left to give you. Our empire is dust, our armies are ghosts, our civilization is a memory. Is that not enough to satisfy your thirst for revenge?" "No," Tom replied simply. "At New Terra, you killed 2 million civilians. We have eliminated approximately 2 million Bruthans in return, but numbers are not enough. You must understand what you have awakened. You must see what you have made. You has become. You speak as if we forced this transformation upon you," Corax said. "You chose to become hunters. You chose to pursue genocide against our people. Did we?" Tom asked. "Or did you choose it for us when you decided to test our resolve by destroying a peaceful colony? You wanted to demonstrate your strength by killing our children. Now we demonstrate ours by ending your species." The old Bruthan general was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of profound regret. "We were fools. We saw your peaceful nature and mistook it for weakness. We believed that superior technology made us invincible. We forgot that the most. Dangerous predator is often the one that does not look dangerous." "Yes," Tom agreed. "You forgot that humans are persistence hunters. We may not be the strongest or the fastest, but we never stop. We never give up. We never forget. You gave us a reason to hunt you, and now we will finish what you started. The galaxy will not forgive you for this," Corax warned. "Genocide is a crime that transcends all others. Other species will fear you, unite against you, seek to destroy you before you turn your attention to them." "Perhaps," Tom acknowledged. "But they will also remember what happens to those who harm humans. They will know that we are not conquerors seeking territory or resources. We are predators who respond to threats with absolute elimination. That knowledge will serve as protection for our people long after this war is over." "And what of your souls?" Corax asked. "What have you become in your quest for vengeance? Can you still call yourselves human after what you have done?" Tom was quiet for a moment, considering the question. Around him, the bridge crew continued their preparations for the final assault. These were his people, shaped by war and hardened by purpose. They were still human, but they were also something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. "We are what you made us," Tom said finally. "We are the consequence of your choices. We are the price of your arrogance. We are the memory of New Terra made manifest." The transmission ended, and Tom turned his attention to the final phase of the operation. The Bruthan fortress was indeed formidable, but the humans had spent years studying its defenses, capturing similar installations, learning every weakness. They knew exactly how to break it. "All ships, commence final assault," Tom ordered. The human fleet opened fire with weapons that had been perfected through years of warfare against Bruthan technology. Energy beams that could penetrate any shield, Missiles that could track targets through dimensional space, gravity weapons that could crush matter at the molecular level. This was not just superior firepower, it was the evolution of warfare itself. The Bruthan fortress fought back with desperate courage, its weapon systems unleashing enough destructive power to crack planets. But the humans had learned patience from their prey. They did not rush the attack or seek quick victory. They methodically dismantled the fortress piece by piece, section by section, until only the command center remained intact. When the human soldiers finally breached the inner defenses, they found the Bruthan survivors waiting for them in the central chamber. No last-minute escapes, no desperate final stands, just the broken remnants of a species facing extinction. General Corax stood before his remaining people, his weapon discarded at his feet. "We surrender unconditionally," he said to the human soldiers. "We ask only that you make it quick." "No," replied the lead soldier. "You do not get to choose how this ends. You forfeited that right when you destroyed New Terra." The final elimination took several hours. The humans were methodical, checking each Bruthan against their databases, confirming identities, ensuring that no one escaped justice. When it was over, the Bruthan Empire had ceased to exist, not just as a political entity, but as a species. Tom stood in the empty command center, surrounded by the silence of completed vengeance. His communications officer handed him a datapad containing the final tallies. The numbers were precise as they had been throughout the war. 2 million humans killed at New Terra, 2,017,346 Bruthans eliminated in response. "Shall I transmit the completion report to Fleet Command?" the officer asked. "Yes," Tom replied. "And send a general broadcast to the galaxy. Let them know that the debt has been paid in full." The message went out across the galactic communication network, reaching every species, every world, every civilization that had watched the war unfold. The text was simple and direct. The Bruthan Empire no longer exists. This is what happens to those who harm humans. Remember New Terra. Within hours, responses began flooding in from across the galaxy. Some species expressed horror at the scale of human retribution. Others offered congratulations on their victory. Most simply acknowledged the message and began adjusting their policies toward humanity accordingly. The Kelvari were among the first to respond. Their message was brief but carried the weight of ancient wisdom. The young species has become the apex predator. The galaxy is forever changed. Tom stood on the bridge of his flagship as the human fleet began its journey home. Around him, his crew carried out their duties with the same precision that had made them the most feared military force in galactic history. But for the first time in years, there was something different in their expressions. The hunt was over. The purpose that had driven them for so long was complete. "Sir," asked his tactical officer, "what are our orders now?" "Where do we go from here?" It was a good question. Humanity had spent 3 years becoming perfect predators, adapting their entire civilization to the single goal of hunting Bruthan survivors. Now that goal was achieved, and they faced an uncertain future as the galaxy's newest apex species. "We go home," Tom said simply. "We remember what we have learned, and we prepare to defend it. We are no longer the peaceful explorers who first left Earth. We are something new, something that the galaxy has never seen before. We are humans who have learned to hunt, and we will never forget that lesson." The human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind only empty void and the expanding debris of what had once been the last Bruthan stronghold. Across the galaxy, other species began to reassess their relationships with humanity, understanding at last what the old Kelvari had tried to warn them about. Humans were not conquerors seeking to build an empire. They were not traders seeking profit or explorers seeking knowledge. They were persistence hunters who would pursue their enemies across time and space until justice was served. They had become the galaxy's memory made manifest, the consequence of choices made in arrogance and paid for in blood. The war was over, but its lessons would echo through the stars forever. Never attack humans, for they will hunt you forever. This was the new law of the galaxy, written in the ashes of the Bruthan Empire and sealed with the silence of the void.